rejection of the rule of law in favour of rule by law. Now, prior to the Reformation, the sovereign was subject to the fundamental and constitutional obligation to Magna Carta and their coronation oath. The Protestant monarchs and thereafter parliaments captured the natural law of God and the common law of man in order that their contents could be perversely transmuted to serve the will of the state. Now we can see plainly that Parliament has done away with its bastardised version of God's law and will soon do the same with the common law of man. Secondly, the Reformation laid out the carpet for the harm principle, that essentially the only purpose for which power can be rightfully exercised over any member of a civilized community against his will is to prevent harm to others. This principle means that civic power does not extend to the saving of the souls of others. Harm is, however, a vague term. Is it physical? Is it psychological? Is it to the individual? Or is it to the community? This is how backsliding to pagan morality can be achieved, by the changing of legal principles and definitions to the point where harm done by offensive words outweighs the damage of public immorality. We may also see the abandonment of God in another philosophical framework, that facilitated by the Reformation, that of utilitarianism, wherein the maximalisation of happiness and the minimalisation of suffering is a litmus test for a good law in our nation. Note that happiness after earth is not included here. Thus, this form of hedonism can be used to justify abortion, suicide, and now, according to the Greens, a complete decriminalisation of drugs. This moral system, once applied to humans only, is now being applied to animals and to trees, who, according to some, should be entitled to human rights, apparently. All of this begs a question: why have we done this to ourselves as a nation? This is simply because we have loved the world more than we have loved our Lord. Whilst the faith's glories are unseen, the attractions of the world are before our eyes. The issue being that the world can promise us far more than it can fulfill. The Reformation promised to the nobility gold and grand estates. The Enlightenment promised to middling men that for scientific advancement they must cast off the notion of God altogether. And now they preach the gospel of equality to minority groups to foster the final collapse of our society. The final law is the one that we tell ourselves, that God has abandoned our nation. But this is completely inverse. We have rejected God, and the consequence has been the scourging of this united kingdom. And only by drawing closer to the faith may we reclaim our birthright, which is peace and true freedom in these isles. Now, Cardinal Newman explains by 4 duties how we may achieve the reclamation of this birthright. The first duty is intercession, constant prayer for the state and all in authority, no matter the persecution of the church. This secures all other duties: candor, respect, not speaking evil of dignities, and bars disgust and misanthropy. The second duty mentioned is remonstrance, calm, distinct persevering, by word, look, and demeanour. Laymen, especially legal professionals, have a deep responsibility as the machinery of change passes through their hands. The third duty is continued patriotism, submission, and order. Quote, the powers that be are ordained of God, whether they foster the true church or not. The more loyal affection mingled with obedience, the better. The fourth duty that the Cardinal talks about is resigning oneself to daily, hourly duties of piety, purity, charity, and justice. Doing all as a Christian credits the cause and draws down God's blessing. This fosters punctuality, veracity, fairness, impartiality, patience, and an awful sense of God's presence. In the era of modernism that we now live in, a fifth duty must be added to this protocol, that being an increased devotion to the Blessed Virgin Mary through the recitation of the Rosary for all the sacrileges and indifferences committed in our nation every waking minute. Our Lady is our only hope in saving this united kingdom. Only through her intercession may we be delivered from our present sadness and the tyranny of the current regime, just like the Austrians who were delivered from the grasp of this communist Soviet Union by an increase in devotion to Our Lady. So let us turn now to hear the words of Mr. Cuneo Flood, legate of the LFSPN, who will talk to us about the existence of God, who, as we have seen from these words, is so necessary for the flourishing of our lives, for our families, and for our nation. Thank you.